Hello and welcome back to the Sacred Plant Healing Secrets Explains webinar series. My name is John Malanka, your host and advocate and co-creator of Healing Secrets Explains webinar series. And first off, I just want to say a special thank you. This is episode 6 out of 7, and the support that we've had, our fun Thursday nights with the live Q&A has just been something I look forward to every week. So thank you, and it gets bigger and bigger every week. And the questions are there, and the feedback that we have from guests, not only being able to call in and ask questions, but to have some one-on-one time with us, as long as we give away 4 free consultations, medical consultations to our followers. So again, thank you for that. So special thanks again to the people who not only purchased and supported our mission by buying the premium package of this webinar series, and included in the webinar series is not only access to the webinars, all 7 webinars, but Q&A, the transcripts, key takeaways, and pretty much the best feature I just mentioned was our live Thursday Q&As. So thank you for everybody for joining us there. So tonight's guest, these are 2 dear friends of ours. The topic is Be Empowered, How to Make Safe Choices When Choosing a Medicine. And tonight's guests, we have Diana Pena and Jeff Kaleri of Miriam's Hope. So welcome, you two.
Thank you, John. Thank you for having us.
Thanks, John.
Good to see you as well. So
you too.
So let's start off. So Diana, I know you have an incredible story of how you got into this industry. I know cannabis was not your guys' background,
Nope.
just like it was not for Corinne and I. And you had a personal story that kind of brought you into this industry. Someone last week that I spoke to said that we are drafted into this industry. So if you'd share your touching story.
Sure. So yeah, like you said, I was not involved in the cannabis industry whatsoever before this. My mom was diagnosed with brain cancer in January of 2013. And, from the beginning, it didn't look good for her. She was diagnosed with a glioblastoma, which is stage 4 brain cancer, but it was also inoperable. So her prognosis was not good. Initially, they told us that if we did chemo and radiation for her, she could live maybe 3 months to a year, maybe a year and a half. So of course, when we were, hit with that news, I went into just desperate research mode. And initially, I was looking for clinical trials for glioblastomas, and there wasn't really anything available at that time. But what I did come across while researching clinical trials, I came across the study by Manuel Guzman in Spain that he did, I don't know, like in 2011, that talked about some promising research that he had been doing with glioblastomas and cannabis. And so once I saw this and I read the study, and as soon as I Googled cannabis and brain cancer, just all this information started to pop up. And this was back before there was the information that there is now. So there was a lot, but there wasn't like there is now. So I happened to find there were some Facebook groups that were forming at the time, and I joined. There was a couple cannabis groups that only had a few hundred people in them. Didn't really have that many people like they do now. And so I wanted to find out about where do I get this oil for my mom? And so I found a YouTube video, started making it for her, and we just started giving it to her. And she started getting better, because my mom, as soon as she was diagnosed and right after they did the biopsy, and as soon as she got out of the hospital, she was not talking. About a month later, she had a really huge seizure. She really started declining. She was like starting to almost not walk. Her left side started going weak. I mean, just kind of everything started kind of snowballing with her. So she was really like not doing well initially. And so once we started the cannabis, we did start the cannabis oil along with the chemo. And so we did that for about 8 months. But at the end of 8 months, her tumor stabilized, but it never shrunk. And so I guess because it didn't shrink, the doctors wanted to kind of give her a break or just stop her from doing the chemo for a little while. And so they said, well, we're going to stop the chemo, and for we want to start a different treatment, but of course, because of insurance, it was going to take a few months for it to get approved. And so at that time, I said, well, right now they're not doing any treatments, nothing. I'm just going to, give her a lot of oil. And at the time, we didn't really dose off of milligrams. We didn't have the knowledge that we do now. So I just kind of went off what I was learning through people on Facebook, really. And so I just decided that I had some information that with brain tumors, high dosing is usually what has been seen to work. And so I just, from October all the way through March, I just high dosed her like crazy. And at the end of March, so in February, they started her on Avastin. And so we had her on Avastin for about a month. And at the end of March, they did an MRI, and the tumor it had gone from like a 4 centimeter to less than like a 1 centimeter. It was almost gone. And so, we were just excited, and the doctors were excited. And so at that point, I was already really involved in a lot of the groups because I'd been sharing my mom's story for at this point, we were into it almost a year with giving my mom the oil. And so people started coming to me for help because they had the same issue that I had. We couldn't find the oil anywhere. Even here in California, we would call dispensaries and they had no idea what it was. Or if they tried to sell me butane, they would try to sell me dabs, wax, all this stuff. And I knew that's not what I wanted. And I knew that giving my mom stuff that was extracted with butane was not what I wanted her to have. So we were making her the oil, extracting it with alcohol. But like I said, people started coming to me asking me if I can make the oil from them, if I could sell it to them, if I could show them how to make it. And so it just kind of went from there. We had one person come to us and say, hey, can I buy this from you? And then it just kind of snowballed. And at that point, once we started getting a lot of people asking for help, I went to Jeff, who wasn't involved in it at all at that point. And I said, I think that there's something here. I think that we can help people and make this oil for other people, mainly because it wasn't accessible. I couldn't find it anywhere, and I'm in California. I'm in Southern California. You would think that you could find it here, but you couldn't. And so we went and talked to a lawyer, did all the paperwork, kind of put our mind at ease because we were a little scared with the legalities of getting into this business. But as soon as we did, it really just blew up. It's just snowballed because we had so many people that were looking for this. And then from that point on, we started working with medical professionals and nurses, and then we met John and Corinne. And so that's kind of how we grew. It started just by working with a few patients, and then it just grew from there. So that's kind of the gist of how we got started. And now, we have 6 employees, and we have, I don't even know how many patients we have, but we probably have a few thousand people that we help. So, yeah.
It just so you guys and our listeners know, we spoke about testing last week, and I could tell you I feel confident and safe recommending Miriam's Hope to my father-in-law and to my family, because I do know the practices that they take in regards to testing, making sure the formulations are correct, and treating this as a medicine. So they're not a collective, and I use the word collective because that's legally how they had to, and correct me if I'm wrong, but legally that's what you are, a legal California collective. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Correct. So a legal California collective. And so they're actually working, like our company, 99% of their clientele is gravely ill. Scared, desperate, sick, so they're not their clientele is not the recreational market. So they take this very seriously. Diana, can you share the outcome with your mom? Can you share the outcome with about your mom?
Yeah. So, unfortunately, my mom did pass away, but it wasn't because the oil wasn't working. My mom, so after that MRI that we had, the doctors were, everybody was excited, and the doctors had been wanting to take her off steroids because at this point she had been on steroids for over a year and very high doses of steroids. And so the the once we started weaning her off steroids, it was awful. I mean, that's really the best way to put it. She became very sick. It was just the come down taking her off of these medications made it very difficult to give her the oil, because you have to realize we were giving her probably over 1,000 milligrams of combined THC and CBD a day. But she was able to tolerate it because she was eating. She, when people are on steroids, or they have big appetites, so she was able to tolerate this because she was eating all the time. But when they took her off the steroids, I mean, she literally went from 150 pounds to like 110 pounds in about a month and a half. She just got really skinny, just lost a lot of muscle tone. It was very difficult to give her the oil. And we never, we had to taper her off completely at one point. And then when we tried to slowly bring her back up, we were just never able to bring her back up to the doses that we had her at. And unfortunately, about 3 months later, about 4 months later, the tumor came back just all of a sudden, and it was just impossible. I mean, we couldn't control it. And even at that point, we still had not been able to reach the doses that we had her on, where she had been, where the tumor had been shrinking. We had been able to maintain it and contain it. It just went out of control. And one of the things it was a lesson for me that I learned, that no matter what happens, you can't stop the oil. You can't stop the medicine. And I wish I could go back and do things differently. The thing was, back then we also didn't work with the tinctures like we do now, which are much easier to dose and a lot easier to control the dosing. So I think that's another thing too. It was really hard to give her the thick full extract oil because that's very hard for someone to tolerate, especially when they're taking so much, and on top of it she's not eating. But now that we work with a lot of different types of oils, and we have tinctures, and we have different tinctures at different potencies, I think it's easier for patients to dose more accurately and to be able to control the dosing and to know how much you're giving the person. But I feel that it was something that I learned with my mom, is an experience that no matter what, you have to stay with the protocol that you're on, and that the protocol that you're having success with at the time, because that's what was keeping her tumor at bay. And I really believe that that's what extended my mom's life as long as it did.
Yeah, and I can tell you, Jeff and Diana have one of the top true medical cannabis companies in this industry, and with the experience they had with Diana's mom, in honor, they started Miriam's Hope, which was Diana's mom's name. So I remember that time, and so you guys have come a long way. So, and you've helped a lot of people. You've helped our family and our friends, and a lot of the clients and patients that come through United Patients Group. So thank you for doing what you do. You mentioned tinctured, and you started off with, and I know we're going to get to you, Jeff, so I haven't forgotten you here. Okay.
I'm still here.
Okay. So, but you did mention, I mean, you started off with the fecal oil, and also the whole line of products you have. I'm gonna go back to the fecal oil. This question comes up quite a bit, and this was the question that came in here, is what is the difference between RSO, also known as Rick Simpson oil, and fecal oil, full extract cannabis oil? And this is something that it's kind of frustrating to me, because this is a daily topic that we have over here. Who can handle this one, Jeff or Diana?
I can actually handle that question.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. You're up.
The difference between both, actually, they're both basically the same product. RSO just has I don't want to say a bad rap out there, because RSO is known to be extracted with harsh solvents that we don't actually recommend. I think hexane is one of them. Obviously, products extracted with hexane, I'm pretty sure nobody would want in their body because there's going to be some type of residual left in there, usually, if you don't know how to extract it properly. Um, and FECO is a full extract cannabis oil. It's basically the same product, but with our product, we extract it with food grade organic ethanol, and we make sure that we purge it correctly to make sure there's no residual alcohol in there. And we have it tested by a third-party lab as well to make sure it's clean and there's no residual in there. So it's essentially they're both the same product, but they're just, RSO in my mind and our mind, it's not the great oil because it's extracted with a harsh chemical that we don't approve of. I mean, there's a lot better compounds out there that you can extract with, other than the compounds that the Rick Simpson oil has. So that would be the difference, in my opinion.
So all cannabis oil is not Rick Simpson oil, or people have just jumped onto the name RSO oil or Rick Simpson oil.
Yeah.
So, and then you talk about extraction methods. So probably a lot of people that are listening to us tonight, they're probably scratching their head in regards to what does that mean by extraction? Can you touch up on that? I know you did talk about the food grade alcohol. There's CO2 extraction. You want to touch on that, Jeff? I know that's your area of expertise.
Yeah, there's different ways of extracting cannabis. I mean, I don't want to say thousands of ways, but there's a lot of ways you can extract the cannabinoids from marijuana. The top ways I would say right now that the industry is using are, chemical compounds such as ethanol. I hate to say butane because we don't use butane, but compounds like these are used to extract and make a concentrate out of it. And then from there, you can make byproducts from it. Either you make FECO, you can make dabs, you can make different types of product. I mean, there's hundreds of different products out there. There's it's crystalline now. So as far as your main extraction methods, right now I would say it's CO2, and then also your chemical compounds such as ethanol, butane, and any other hydrocarbon out there that people extract with. So those I would say are the two main right now. I mean, people in the industry are coming in, figuring out different ways they can extract. I mean, there's all kinds of chemists coming in now, figuring out ways to extract the cannabinoids most efficiently from the plant, because that's the main goal, and the cleanest way, obviously, because we want to make sure that the extraction is clean and it's not going to cause more complications down the road for patients.
So, and testing is really important. And you did mention, I'm gonna throw a disclaimer in here for the lawyers that are here at the organization. So everything we discussed tonight is about for education. It's an informational forum, and it's not a how-to. So I just need to throw that out there before my next question. This question comes up a lot, and we've had a lot of people excited about you guys being on this evening. So the next question here was one of the top questions: what's the best extraction for me to do at home? So a lot of our followers aren't fortunate to live in a legal state, that have safe access, that they have a Miriam soap or dispensaries in their area. A lot of them just happen to live in an illegal state. And if it wasn't for Corinne and I and my father-in-law living in a legal state, and the same thing for you, Diana, with your mom, we probably wouldn't have this option on our table. It wasn't part of our lifestyle, and it was not something that we had access to. So what do you say for families who live in illegal states that want to do this on their own? A lot of them are forced to travel to a legal state, obtain it. How they get it home is up to them. It is illegal. So again, I'm not advising anybody to do that, but a lot of our followers call and want to know how to make it, and we don't sell products. And so what's a tip you can give them for the people that are trying to do this? And again, this is not a how-to video. I'm just sharing, some of their knowledge here, or you're sharing some of your knowledge.
Okay. Well, the tip I can give obviously is, I would say the safest way to extract, I mean, obviously if you're at home and you're not in I guess an environment where it's safe to extract with harsh chemical solvents like ethanol, hexane, butane, like some of these solvents can be pretty harsh. I'd say the best way to extract would be just the old-fashioned soaking your cannabis plant inside some type of a fat, like an olive oil, which I recommend actually olive oil. Soak it in there and then soak over time, I'd say over a week, the cannabinoids will actually soak into the fat, and then you can strain out your cannabis plant, and then what's left in your fat is your cannabinoids. The only problem with doing this is you're not going to have high concentrations inside they call it a tincture, because the olive oil can only be saturated so much with the cannabinoids. If you absolutely must have to have your concentrate, I mean, I can't recommend you make it at home, because honestly there is no true safe way at home to do it. There are machines out there that they do sell online that you can actually do it at home. The safest way I would say is to have some type of a distiller. Make sure it's ethanol rated, rated for chemicals, because you'll have the seals that'll actually be rated for that. Because if you use a water distiller with ethanol, the seals can actually break, and you can have some type of explosion or something catastrophic could happen. So make sure if you do get a distiller, and that's the route you're going, that it's a chemical grade, and it can withstand whatever chemical you're going to put in there, preferably a food grade ethanol, which I'd recommend. But as far as that goes, I mean, there's videos on YouTube you can watch if you truly have to do it at home, that'll show you how to do it.
So I'm speaking for everyone out there. I know this probably went over a lot of people's heads, because it kind of did mine, because we don't sell or make products. But on Thursday night, on the live Q&A, I know Jeff can probably go more into detail about this. And so so a lot of people are making this, and you make 190 proof food grade alcohol. Is it safe? And I know the answer, so maybe you can touch up on this. A lot of people are forced to, when they do make it at home, is they think alcohol is alcohol. And a lot of patients that we've seen over the years have contacted us saying they've made it at home, they've gotten sick, and I'll ask them, what are they using? And next thing you know, they're telling me they're using isopropyl alcohol. Can you share why that's not a safe solvent for them?
I mean, essentially these alcohols can be safe if they're extracted properly, but the problem with people that make it at home is they don't know how to extract properly. With isopropyl, you definitely have to make sure you get a lot, I would say all of it out of there, because it's something you do not want in your system at all. The reason why I recommend using a food grade like ethanol, which is basically a drinking alcohol, we actually recommend Everclear if you can find it in your state. Like at the highest proof you can get, because that'll extract the most amount of cannabinoids out of there. But the reason why we recommend that is because for the beginner, it's going to be hard for them to know exactly how much alcohol is left in their concentrate after it's extracted. So if they do manage to have some leftover in there, consuming it won't be dangerous or harmful versus taking isopropyl or another chemical compound that they extract with that you're not supposed to be ingesting.
Gotcha. And just for the record, for everybody who does not live in a legal state, this isn't legal for you to make. So I just need to throw that disclaimer here. You're taking your own risk. And would you guys know, is it even legal in all of the legal cannabis states? Because I know Arizona for the longest time it was not legal to do so. Do you guys know that?
To my knowledge, extracting at home is not legal. You have to have a licensed manufacturing facility in the city that you're, I guess making it in. But that's not to say you can't do it. But technically, it's not legal to actually extract, because at that point you're making a chemical compound, and technically, as of the law stand right now, you do need a license for that. Gotcha.
And so I advise everybody, if you are going to get medicine, do it from a professional like Miriam's Hope. So you guys must get this question quite a bit as well. And I know, so Jeff and Diana were also featured in the docuseries. So I'm certain you guys had a lot of calls after the docuseries. So great job, and thanks for being part of that. But we had a lot of calls, and I'm certain you guys get this all the time too. can you ship out? Can you ship to us in out of state? And so, does Miriam's Hope ship outside of California? I know the answer, but if you guys can share that as well.
Absolutely not. I wish we could, but we can't. A lot of people said, well, it's CBD, you can ship it. No, our CBD is not hemp. We don't even have a hemp. Even if it was hemp, we don't have an agricultural hemp license, so we couldn't even ship hemp out if we wanted to. So we can't ship outside of California. We can't ship outside of the country. We got a lot of inquiries from the docuseries out of the country. So unfortunately, we can't. We really wish we could.
It's tough because we get
Yeah.
those calls all the time, and
Mhm.
you really want to help people. You've seen the
Yeah.
benefits of the sacred plant. We've seen it firsthand with my father-in-law, and the hundreds and hundreds of other patients that we've worked with. And it's tough when you talk to a family that's going through the same thing that we went through,
Mhm.
and you got to say no. And, I'm sorry, your hands are tied, and it's really tough because, we get connected to people that we talk to, and I'm
Yeah.
certain you guys do as well. So for a family that's out of state, how does that work? I know the laws are changed here in California, where they used to be able to come into California and obtain a California ID with a U.S. Birth certificate or a U.S. passport. And that law has changed, I think, actually a year ago in July last year. So is there any way around this, or do they have to be residents of California?
I mean, it's pretty easy to get a doctor's recommendation. All they require is an ID. But the best thing to do is for them to contact the Department of Motor Vehicles and see what they're going to require as far as for them to come in and get a California ID. I don't know of any doctors that will take out-of-state IDs. There are some, because it's my understanding that it's kind of a gray area. There are some doctors, I don't know of any. I know the doctors we work with and that they require California ID. So I couldn't guide anybody or tell them what doctors to go to that won't require California ID, but I know that there's some. I've talked to some of them before in the past. And that's really all you need is a California ID and your doctor's recommendation. And out here, the doctor's recommendations, you get them in like 20 minutes in one day. You can get them for as low as $40. Or you can go through a doctor that's going to give you a little bit more guidance. It's probably going to be a little bit more expensive. The doctors that are going to offer you a little more guidance, but they're going to include the recommendation, which is valid for a whole year, are going to give you more dosing information. They're going to tell you how to take it, what to take, what to buy. But those doctors are going to be a lot more expensive. I mean, that might run somebody anywhere from like $300 to $600 for a consultation with a doctor like that.
Gotcha. And you mentioned dosing, and so doctors doing dosing, and I know that's something that you guys do not do. And so when patients work with you, you're not giving them dosing instructions. Generally, you're getting potency protocols and dosing and formulations from the medical experts. Is that true?
That's correct.
Mm-hmm.
We found that dosing can get it can be really complicated, and it is very personalized to each person and what type of cancer they have, their ailments, and it's mainly because any time that somebody's asking dosing questions, they're going to always ask you questions about their medications, that they have this, or they have that, and we're not qualified to answer those questions. A lot of times, and most of the time, if somebody comes to you with cancer, it's very unlikely that cancer is the only thing that they're going to have. A lot of times they have heart issues, they have arthritis, they have diabetes, they're already taking a ton of other medications. And because cannabis can interact with certain medications, we just really try to stay away from dosing them. But also because we know that there's certain cancers that respond to certain types of ratios and certain types of cannabis. So we want to give them the best advice, we want to give them the best guidance that we can. And since the nurses and the doctors that we work with, they work day to day with these people, and they get a lot of the feedback. So for example, they know, okay, for brain cancer, we know that this particular type of ratio is what's going to work better. For lung cancer, we know this particular protocol is probably what's been working for most people. And so we try to steer away from dosing people or getting too in depth with helping them with dosing. We sometimes, if they can't afford a consultation, we'll give them very basic dosing advice and we'll get them started. So we'll say, well, this is what, try this, but we really advise you that at some point you try to get in to see a nurse. We've even paid for some consultations. I do it a lot sometimes when I feel that when I get somebody that is just, their medical history is just something that's just too much for me, and there's no way that I would be able to help them, but they really want to do the protocol, and they just either can't afford it. Sometimes we'll donate that to them as well. So we really, really stress dosing through a medical professional as much as possible.
Gotcha. And again, cannabis is not a one size fits all. And I know we had Dr. Goldstein on the other night or the other week. It's not a one size fits all. They do look at age, weight, current health condition, any medications or supplements. Diana, a moment ago, you mentioned, the telemed, for families that are coming out here, or even people here in California doing telemed, the majority of them, you're not going to get any medical advice for the $19, $20, $40 for this recommending card. You're just going to get a recommendation. That's it. And you're a legal patient. After that, you're on your own because that's all you need is to get that. And so going into a dispensary, you're probably not going to get dosing. They're not going to look at pain. You could have pain for cancer pain, or you could have bone pain. You could have a back pain, so all different types of pains are different. You could be a diabetic. Does the person at the dispensary know about that? Or are they just going to give you a brownie or a cookie? So I'm a big fan of going with a true medical professional, like we had on the other night. Dr. Bonnie Goldstein, one of the tops in this industry, not only here in the U.S., but overseas. So earlier you mentioned about CBD. People say, hey, can you guys send CBD and hemp? And I was going to wait for this question to the end, and I asked this to all the guests. So is hemp CBD the same as cannabis CBD? So who would like to pick? Jeff,
I'll
you're
take
up.
that one.
Yeah.
Well, without getting too much into detail, essentially the compounds are the same. CBD is CBD, whether you get it from hemp or cannabis. The only difference between the two is hemp, you're going to have different terpenes. Typically with hemp, you're going to see a huge high ratio, very, very, very tiny amounts of THC. So you're primarily just getting the CBD out of the plant. The other problem with hemp is you need to find out where it's sourced from. A lot of companies right now, or in the past, have got their hemp from questionable sources. Hemp is known to extract toxins from the earth. So you have to make sure that the hemp that is being grown organically in clean soil, under controlled environments. Otherwise, you have no idea once it's extracted what's in there, heavy metals, toxins, etc., that it might be in that hemp plant. There was a thing like 3 years ago where this company was selling hemp. They're actually getting it from, I think, China, I want to say, and they're actually getting the hemp from the radioactive landfill that they had out there. So that was a big issue, I think, a couple of years ago. I'm not sure if it's still an issue now, but those are some of the issues with hemp CBD now. Cannabis CBD typically has a lower ratio, and we're finding that most patients actually do need a little bit of THC in their product. With cannabis-derived CBD, you're typically going to see, they're actually starting to breed higher ratios now, which is technically still cannabis, but you're seeing ratios typically right now from 30 to 1 up to as much as 50 to 1. But I believe like a hemp CBD is like a 500 to 1. It's such a high ratio. But then again, you're dealing with where is it sourced from, how was it grown, and so forth, it's going to be almost impossible to find out the source of your hemp once you get it in your hand.
So is it legal for patients to ship or companies that ship across state lines, that's still a up for grab question. Again, as Diana mentioned earlier, in the gray area, CBD from hemp shipping to all 50 states still falls in that gray area. And we run into that quite a bit. We get a lot of patients that are in illegal states and they're looking for one last shot, and they do turn to the hemp CBD. So that's why I asked you, is there a difference? And has hemp CBD, have you ever seen any studies about hemp CBD killing cancer cells?
As far as the hemp CBD goes, I haven't really researched much because we don't use hemp CBD.
Yeah.
I have heard stories of them working for epilepsy, but obviously, like I said before, you have to make sure the product's clean. You have to know where it's sourced from is the key factor here with hemp right now. I know that I know Colorado, Oregon are, I think they already have a hemp program out there where they can actually start growing legal hemp. So they can start providing hemp products that are clean, organic, certified organic by the state out there. But as far as actual studies, I haven't really seen any because we don't really use those products here.
Gotcha. And I knew that, so sorry for throwing you on
That's okay.
on the spot on that one. So here's a question that came in. It said, John mentioned that some companies add terpenes in previous episodes, and do you do that? And actually, that's what I like about Jeff and Diana and Miriam's Hope is that they do add terpenes to their products.
Mm-hmm.
Please touch up on that and the benefits of terpenes and the different type of terpenes and their uses.
Well, terpenes, I would say is kind of a new thing in the industry. Obviously, it's been around for years and years and years. People use essential oils for helping themselves with anxiety, sleeping, and so forth. Lavender, for example, has certain terpenes in them that give you a relaxation effect. They also provide the smell in plants and so forth. But as far as adding them in, we actually have seen pretty drastic results with adding terpenes in. Obviously, it'd be way better if we can get the plant with the exact amount of terpenes that we need, the exact terpene profile we need. But to be honest, it's almost impossible to get that out of a plant, and to have to duplicate that every single time for a patient is impossible. So we have to find a way to be able to replicate that. So if we know we give it to patient B over here that's doing extremely well on a certain profile with a certain ratio, we can duplicate that every single time so their medicine is not changing, so they don't have any adverse reactions from it. As far as terpenes go, I mean, there's a lot of terpenes out there. They're finding new terpenes all the time with cannabis. I mean, terpenes are found in every single plant life out there, even some insects. But we use, as far as the sourcing goes, we use organic source terpenes from natural sources. We do not use synthetic source terpenes because some companies do use synthetic terpenes, which don't work as well as the natural derived terpenes do. And we make sure we add them in the right quantities to the right products for the right effect, because terpenes can also be toxic if you take too much of it in certain quantities. They can be toxic, so we make sure we're careful of that as well.
Gotcha.
What are
And
some of the terpenes?
yeah. And can you share some of the terpenes that you guys use? I know pinene.
Yeah. As far as terpenes go, I would say there are the more common terpenes that we do use for therapeutic effects. Myrcene we like to use a lot because it helps with, I guess, relaxation and sedation. If we add it on top of the THC product, it actually enhances the relaxation effect. Apenine we don't use as much because it can be stimulating to some people. So we tend to stay away from that from people with anxiety problems, sleep issues. We do find apenine works with focus. Apenine is also found in, I guess they call them the sativa strains, which helps with being awake. That's basically what they're known for. So that's why you find apenine in those strains. We use beta-caryophyllene, which is also a great terpene we use for, stress, anxiety. In addition to, it has a lot of great anti-tumor properties. I mean, I'd say all the terpenes do. We also use limonene. Linalool actually is great for epilepsy. It has anti-seizure properties. Also has anti-tumor properties, and also helps with anxiety, and also helps with relaxation. I mean, there's quite a bit of terpenes that I can probably spend a good hour on. So, but those are some of the main ones we like to use.
Yeah, Jeff, and I know on Thursday night those questions will come up quite a bit. So you'll be able to have some one time with our followers this Thursday night. So these next three questions go hand in hand. They've been brought up in our past, I think, 3 or 4 live Q&As, and I'm going to go right down here. What is the best place to store my medicine? And like I said, this one comes up a lot. Can medicine go bad? And is there a shelf life? So do you want to touch up on that?
Okay, as far as the storing of medicine, I'd recommend away from direct sunlight. It also depends on what the product is. If it's like, for example, THCA, which can convert to THC, THCA, any kind of product that hasn't converted, we recommend storing in the refrigerator. As far as the other products go, like your concentrates and products that have already been converted, you can store them away from sunlight, medicine cabinet, cool place. As far as shelf life, I would say they do have a shelf life. If they're stored properly, they can last a very long time. Obviously, the longer you keep them, the less potent they get. So that's one of the downsides of it. They don't lose potency too quickly. But obviously over time they will lose quite a bit of potency, which is why we recommend to use them as quickly as possible. As far as going bad, that really just depends on what the product is. Obviously, if it's like a baked good, it's whatever the shelf life of the baked good is. If it's a tincture, in most cases your olive oil will actually go bad before your cannabis concentrate, whatever is inside, will go bad. So that just depends on the product, I guess, that you have, and you have to store it. So
gotcha. So I was somebody that had THC sitting on the I guess the table, and I'd leave for work, and throughout the day the sunlight would be on it, day after day, day after day. And this happened a few weeks ago, and I brought it up into one of our last live Q&As that I was example of a product that had converted. And so I left the house
THCA.
one day with THCA, and I had THCA and took my morning dose of THCA, went to the office, and about an hour into my work there, I just started getting lightheaded, and my employees said, "What's wrong with you?" I called Corinne and I said, "I think that bottle converted." And so sure enough, it was sitting on the table in the sunlight. And so I would leave in the morning when it was dark, and be in the sun all day, and I'd come home and it'd be dark. And so I'm thinking, yeah, nothing's wrong with it. So I experienced that. Gosh, there was a question too, and you were talking, and I knew I should have written it down too. Shoot. Oh, I know about, you said making your medicine. So 2 questions. Can you talk about the different types of medicines that you guys carry at Miriam's Hope, but also in making your cannabis oil, what part of the plant do they use? Do they use the stalk? Do they use stems? Do they use leaves? Do they use the flower? So that question comes up. So would you guys touch up on, share a little expertise on how they make this oil?
As far as the products that we do carry, we carry the concentrates, we do carry the tinctures, we do carry some vape pen oils as well, which are basically another form of concentrates that we just, I guess, make a little bit differently than our full extract cannabis oil. As far as if somebody were to use, I guess, material, the best material you should use to get the most potent medicine is going to be your flower. But not to say you can't use leaves, you can't use stems. You can use these parts of the plant. They still have cannabinoids on them. You're just not going to get as much from it as you would from your flowers that are on the actual cannabis plant. When you have professional extractors extract, typically they're going to use all the plant because they want to make sure they can extract and utilize all the cannabinoids that are on the plant.
When you mention concentrates, can you share what a concentrate is over full extract cannabis oil?
Well, when I say concentrate, I mean I want to say hundreds of different types of concentrate. There's dabs. You have your vape oils. Vape oils are typically made with CO2 extractions. So there's just different forms depending on, I guess, what type of medicine you're going to be putting it into. Because one extraction method may not be suitable for an application for, I guess, whatever medicinal vessel you're going to put it in. For example, like ethanol wouldn't be the greatest if you were just to put ethanol inside of a vape pen without further purification of that product, whereas CO2 is usually best for that. But
Sorry, Jeff. So on your tinctures, are they infused in coconut oil, grapeseed oil, or alcohol?
with our tinctures, we've actually chosen olive oil as our base. We've just found through research that olive oil is just a better, I guess, carrier for the cannabinoids. It actually helps transport the medicine throughout the body better. Then again, there's also a bunch of debate online versus, you're going to see MCT, you're going to see all kinds of different oils and carriers that people put their product in. Based on my research, I prefer olive oil. That's basically what we use for our products. But then again, like I said, there's going to be all kinds of debate online and people that have different preferences. The only reason people use MCT is because, in my opinion, you can flavor it, which is a plus, because olive oil usually isn't the best tasting if you can't tolerate taste. Whereas MCT has no flavor, you can actually flavor it and make it whatever flavor you like, so it can taste better.
And MCT oil is medium chain triglyceride. Some people call it a different type of coconut oil. Is that correct as well?
Yeah, it's basically fractionated coconut oil. That's why you have no taste, no flavor from the oil, because they basically take some of the compounds out of it to make it the way it is. It doesn't turn solid. I mean, there's a lot of benefits of MCT, but using it for cannabis, in my opinion, isn't the best, I guess, oil to be using for it.
Yeah. And then back to the part where how you make it with the different flowers and stuff like that. We hear a lot of horror stories in this industry on how people are making medicine. A lot of times people will go and sweep up medicine or leaves or stems from someone's flowering garden and just use the trim, and they'll sweep it up not only with the leaves and stems, but with that, they're also sweeping up dirt and dust and then converting it into medicine. Have you guys heard horror stories like that? I know you guys don't do that.
I mean, I haven't heard any personal stories. I've seen people make it like that. I mean, obviously we have certain standards that we make our medicine with and everything's clean, but I guess essentially if you filter it correctly, it shouldn't be a problem. But like I said, we don't make our oil that way, and I haven't personally seen anybody make it that way either. So
Jeff and Diana, so for our followers that say actually live in legal states, and they're looking to obtain safe legal medicine, what are some of the things that a patient should look for? I mean, you're on the side of knowing how to produce safe medicine, safe legal medicine. So for a patient that's going out, or a family member that's going out doing this on their own for the very first time, what are some questions that you can help them, a checklist of a how-to? I know we're not doing a how-to video, but
Yeah.
What questions that they can look for? I know testing is one, so maybe you guys can share what you guys look for or what you guys do in your testing, but also for families and patients when they're out looking for the very first time, what questions to ask, what to look for, what to stay away from. So Diana, you want to touch up on that one?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the first thing would be a lab test. Full lab test, not just your potency, but your pesticide, your residual solvent, and obviously your potency test. What I would do, just because I know how this industry is, and I've come across people that have faked labs, I would personally call the lab and verify that those labs are real. even if it's coming from a dispensary, if you're buying it, whatever, you can always call the labs and you can contact them. Sometimes the labs, depending on the lab, and I think depending on the state, like I know out here, a lot of companies, like for example, if they test through Steep Hill or SC, the labs are online. So you can go onto their website, and if their labs, if their information is open to the public, then the labs are going to be online. But me, just because I know how, I guess, shady some people can be in this industry, and they don't want to, you know, maybe they're using a solvent that they don't want you to know that they're using, and it might, you know, they're not showing you residual solvent testing, or they're faking their labs. I mean, this happens. This literally happens. It's happened a lot. I've seen it happen quite a bit. So personally, me, I would verify the labs on my own, or if you can't, send in, you know, this is going to cost you a little bit, buy a little bit extra, and send it into a lab. If you're in a legal state where there's dispensaries, there's going to be testing labs that you have access to as a patient. The testing labs are not just for the dispensaries, they're also open to the public. So you as a patient can send in a sample and test your own medicine as well. That's what I would do if I was not in, if I needed access to this and I didn't do what we do. I would send in do my own third-party testing on anything that I buy. The other thing would be, try to go with a company that other people have been seeing success with. Not everybody makes their oils the same. So that's another thing I would want is, word of mouth. Who's using the medicine and how it's being used, and how the medicine is being made. Just ask a lot of questions. It's very easy for somebody that doesn't know anything about this medicine to just, someone just says, well, this is 500 milligrams. But what's the whole profile? What's the, just ask a lot of questions.
So Diane, I mean, all great points. And I love the point to actually call the lab itself. Last week we had Enresco, Isaac with Enresco lab up here from the San Francisco Bay Area. And he shared a lot too. Contact the company. If they don't answer, put it on social media and say, hey, go to their social media account and call them out and ask them, hey, I'd like to see the test results of this. Mm-hmm. But I do like the idea of contacting the lab itself to make their a legitimate lab. And you talked about patients having success with different products. Can you share some of your, I should have asked you earlier, can you share some of your success stories?
Yeah, I mean, we have quite a few. I don't even know where to start. When it comes to brain cancers, we see a lot of success with brain cancers. For example, I think one of our probably most, I would say, really amazing stories that we have is a patient that we have who came to us last year she went into a coma on Mother's Day last year, so 2016. And the family had came to us because the mom was on morphine. She was in a coma. Basically, she was dying, and they wanted to try to take her off the morphine so she could die without being on morphine. And when they came to us, I was just like, well, sometimes it's like I was like, this is really late. I don't know. I told her, I said, I hope that you're not expecting a miracle because your mom's in a coma. I just don't see, at this point, it's just going to help her, with her last few days. And miraculously, her mom is still alive to this day. And she's, in physical therapy. Basically, the mom came out of a coma. When she started the cannabis, they started weaning her off of the morphine, and then she started coming out of the coma. 2 weeks into it, she started drinking water. She hadn't been eating for about a week, started asking for water, and then slowly started asking for food, just little baby steps. And as the weeks went on, we were still very skeptical. And I was talking to the daughter, and I said, let's not get our hopes up yet because this is still very soon, but this is really good. And, you know, the mom went from, she was in a coma, half of her body was paralyzed. So this was in May, and by July, so the hospice nurses that were coming to the home to take care of her were going back to the hospital and telling the doctors, like, this lady is still alive and she's eating now, she's brushing her own teeth, she's trying to, you know, she's getting up out of her chair, you know, she's talking now. And so the doctor was so shocked that she made a home visit because she needed to see this herself. And at that point she said, okay, well, we need to get her we need to do an MRI because we need to see what's going on. I've never seen this happen. This is, you know, this is very strange. She said she'd never seen anybody come out of a coma. So when they did the MRI, the MRI looked good. It was improved in a lot of areas. But really the most amazing thing about her MRI at that point, which was, I believe the MRI was done in August or July of last year. The mom it was brain cancer, and the mom had a midline shift of her brain of about 12 centimeters. People at like, any time your brain shifts even a few centimeters, I mean, this is deadly. Anyone at 12 centimeters should pretty much be dead. And her midline shift had shifted back. I believe it was about 7 or 8 centimeters. They hadn't done anything besides the cannabis, nothing. So that was amazing. I mean, that in itself was just incredible. And obviously that's why she was getting better. And so as time went on, every few months they've done an MRI, and, you know, little things have improved here and there. And then, you know, once a spot might show up here, but all in all, I mean, it's been over a year. We're now in July, and her mom is still with us. She's had, you know, seizures, and there's been bumps in the road, but the main thing is she's still alive. And the only thing they've done the whole entire time is cannabis. I've been trying to get her to do a testimonial for me, but it's been a little hard. The mom worked for the government. The daughter currently works, she's in the Army, so they're very, I think, a little bit scared to kind of put the story out there. But she does share her mom's updates in some of the brain cancer groups. So she's not complete, they're not complete, they do share on social media. But yeah, I mean, it's pretty incredible. I would say that that's one of our most amazing testimonials. We have another one right now with a little girl who we are working with, also brain cancer, who they had most of her tumor was removed, and then they told her she needed to do chemo and radiation. They got her started on cannabis. About a month later, her scans are clear. There's nothing there. Unfortunately, with her, they're forcing her to do radiation. So that's unfortunate right now, because even they did a scan right before they started her on radiation treatments, which she's currently doing as we speak, and her scans were clear. But they're forcing her to do radiation, which is really sad. And then we have a lot of other, we have a lot of epilepsy stories of kids that are completely weaned off pharmaceuticals and drugs. A lot of kids with autistic kids tend to respond. If they respond to cannabis, the response is really good. With autism, it can be a little bit tricky. A lot of times it's a lot of trial and error, but if the right dosing is found and the child or the person does respond, they usually respond really well. So, I mean, I'd say all in all, I mean, I think that most people will see a good response if you're consistent. And if you use the help of a medical professional, because they're going to be able to guide you best and to explain to you what medications to take and how to take them for maximum effectiveness. So I would say that in my experience with dealing with patients, the most success that I see is usually the people that are the most consistent. We have glioblastoma patients that have been with us since we started Miriam's Hope. We have a patient who is I mean, he's probably almost 4 years out of his prognosis, and he's still alive, and he's never had any tumor show up or anything, but he's very consistent. He's hardly lowered his dose in the last 4 years. He stayed on what he's supposed to take. And that's where we really see the most success, I have to say, is that when something works, if people are consistent and they don't change it, they're going to see positive results.
Yeah, and you mentioned the woman who's in the government and that she's afraid to get her story out there. It's a shame that a lot of people, when they have success with something, that there's such a stigma towards the sacred plant that they can't share it with anybody. Mm-hmm. And we hear a lot of families that do that. We have a lot of families that live in illegal states that will come, obtain it, go back home, and they can't share with their family and friends why their loved one or their child is having such success. So it's tough. So hopefully, it will be legal in all 50 states. I know we have, 29 states in Washington, D.C. right now. So I appreciate those stories, and we've heard a lot of your success stories. And I think Corinne mentioned a few weeks ago the story about the little girl who was forced to do radiation even after having clear scans just to get a clean bill of health. Wasn't that the case?
Yeah. So her doctors told their mom that they couldn't, even though her scans are clear and everything looks good, even her bone, they did a bone, something in her spine, everything was clear. Even though everything shows clear, the doctors told her they can't technically label her as being clear of cancer until she does treatment, which is completely absurd. Because and the parents really tried to postpone it, and so what happened was it's not that the parents had said no, but they kept postponing the radiation appointment, and so the doctors kind of, I guess you can say, kind of caught on and told the mom and called CPS. CPS showed up to their home, and even though the CPS lady was very she felt bad for them, and she understood. She was kind of more on the parent side, but she obviously has a job that she has to do. But they told her, you need, at some point, you either find a doctor that will give you the go ahead and say that they'll back you, and saying that it's that she is okay without radiation. But unfortunately, there's none of the doctors that she talked to were willing to do that. And it was just kind of getting down to crunch time for them. They didn't have enough time to get with the lawyers and do all this stuff. She was pretty much being rushed into, getting her into that appointment. And unfortunately, I think she started like 2 weeks ago. She's still going through it right now.
What a shame. And they're here in California, correct?
They are.
Yeah. So, in closing, do you have any words of wisdom to our followers tonight?
I just want to tell people, like I just said a moment ago, if you're taking this oil and it's working for you, don't stop, be consistent. But also if you don't see that it's working for you initially, don't give up, because it might just be that you're not taking maybe the right amount, you're not taking the right ratio, maybe the strain's not good for you. I feel that if people really put an effort into being a little bit more patient, I guess you could say, and trying different things and staying more consistent with it, I think for the most part, I think a lot of people would see success with cannabis, because like I said, that's usually where I see that people have the most success, is when they are consistent and they stick with their dosing protocol, and use a medical professional. That would be my biggest advice. If you have access and you can afford it, use a medical professional.
Yeah, I love that last tip there. Use a medical professional. Like, it's not a one size fits all. My takeaway here is, look for reputable providers that have tested medicine. I know Miriam's Hope is one of those providers. We're proud to say that Miriam's Hope has received our seal of approval for vetted companies that take the steps necessary to put out safe and tested medicines. So it's been an honor having Jeff and Diana on the show. And so I know that we had a lot of feedback even during the docuseries about your company and what you do and how many people you do help. Can you share one thing too? How long has Miriam's Hope been in business? And your insignia, your logo with the butterfly. Can you give me a little background on the meaning of that?
So we started at the end of 2013, and the butterfly, actually, it was my mom's favorite. And the pink. My mom was a Mary Kay lady, and so, you know, Mary Kay, everything's pink. Everything for my mom was pink. She loved pink. But butterflies, my mom, if you went to my mom's house, in almost everything that she bought, whether it was like a shower curtain, a wall decor, she absolutely loved butterflies. They were her favorite. So when we started Miriam's Hope, there was really, we didn't have a hard time figuring out our logo, our color, because I always knew this is what it had to be. It had to be a butterfly and it had to be pink.
Well, I love that. And share the story with the butterfly showing up. That's the one I was hoping for.
Oh, so the night after my mom passed away, Jeff and I were leaving somewhere early in the morning. And I was sitting in his truck waiting for him. He had gone back inside the house. And this gigantic, I mean, I want to say it was probably like this big, monarch butterfly comes flying and just flies into like the windshield and kind of like sits there for a little bit and then just flies away. And it was just incredible. And then after that, there was a few incidents that happened with butterflies. For example, my cousin, who my mom was very close to in Colombia, she lives in a high-rise building, okay, and in Colombia, and she lives in Bogota, which is rainy all day, every day of the year. It's very cold. She lives in the city. All of a sudden, she actually had a monarch butterfly flying through her apartment. This was about a week and a half after my mom passed away. And we didn't know how that it got in there. But it sat on a statue of Jesus Christ, which my mom obviously was very religious. And it was a statue, one of my mom's favorite statues, because it was my grandpa's favorite statue of Jesus. And which was pretty, I mean, we were just like, wow. I mean, this was incredible. My cousin lives like, I think on the 13th floor. You have to get to her apartment. You need to go up an elevator. There's screens on her windows. So there was no explanation on how this butterfly got into her apartment. So there was just a lot of things that happened with butterflies after my mom passed away that are pretty, were pretty telling and significant that that's my mom. So every time we see a butterfly, we know it's my mom.
I love that because, when we lose someone we love, and it's a tough club to be in. And, so I always look for signs from my dad, and I love that story that you shared with your mom. So
thank you.
Family means everything to me. So
yeah.
Anyway, I get emotional easily. So anyway, I love you guys, and I really appreciate you
Thanks,
spending
John.
this evening with us too.
Thanks, John.
And I know our families are proud of what we do. Our loved ones are proud of what we do.
Yeah.
And so I'm excited to have you on this Thursday night to do the live Q&A. It's a lot of fun, and there's some really great people that join in on that call and really participate, with their questions. And it means a lot that we're taking the time to do this and spending time with them. So, Jeff, I haven't forgotten you, so I just want to say thank you for being you and doing what you do. So yeah, I know you share, you do a lot in this industry. You both do. So I just want to thank you both for doing what you do. So,
well, thank you guys. We really appreciate what you guys do for us as well.
Yeah.
So if it weren't for you guys, we wouldn't be here. So spreading the word.
Spread the word. I think education is key. So
exactly.
Anyway, on that note, I just want to thank everyone for spending Tuesday evening with us here tonight, and we'll see you Thursday night for the live Q&A. with Jeff Caleri and Diana Pena of Miriam's Hope. And we'll see you in a couple nights. So God bless. And thank you, Diana and Jeff, for sharing your story and your expertise as well.
Thanks, John. We'll see you Thursday.
All right.
See ya.
Bye.
Guys, good night.
Good night.